Good morning. Greetings from Southwest Australia. I'm still here temporarily. We're all somewhere temporarily. I'm showing you my magic classes. I love them. So what I wanted to talk to you about today is safety and why safety is so important. And what I mean by safety is when we're making choices for ourselves, do we include the possibility, does this feel safe for me? Now, for some people, if there's been a lot of trauma or chaos, without even knowing it, safety may not even be a concept. And safety is a very individual thing. Like, I know that if I walk into a restaurant, like, I'm gonna go pick that corner table so I can go and look at everyone. Now that I've done a lot more work and I feel more grounded and more safe in myself, I'm not as concerned about how I'm placing myself so I can watch everyone. You know, there was a time where, because I'd been robbed at knife point, where like if anyone walked behind me and it felt too close, that was too much for me. So our boundaries and need for safety is going to change according to how we process things. And if you're more sensitive, you're gonna need a little bit more space, for example. So safety can be anywhere from like, you'll know that you'll feel safer because if you show up at a party, you might wanna know that you can leave anytime. So you either have an Uber or you're a car to drive. Or maybe it's like feeling safe when you go into an environment and you can be yourself. You don't feel like, oh my God, like I've got to look a certain way, dress a certain way, act a certain way. I mean, I purposefully, I'll admit, I make these videos only when I feel like it because it just stresses me out to have to be on a schedule. And I do it when I'm like, I've rolled out of bed. This is my bed hair, okay? This is my bed glasses. This is me. I have ignored, obviously, all the Instagram tips of how to make yourself beautiful because it's like, I'm so tired of those beauty standards. Like, fuck that. That's my little side note for you. But when we talk about safety, it's also like what I really want to own, because a lot of times we think about safety of like how everyone else might be bad. We need to start owning safety for ourselves. And what I mean by that is, how are you safe with you? Like, are you kind to yourself? Or do you have these high standards that you're not actually allowed to show up as you when you're with yourself? You're like, oh man, I'm looking a little fat right now. I'm a little grumpy. I can't let people see me grumpy. Whatever those standards that you have that doesn't let you show up as you. That's not you being safe with yourself. Like, we have to be our own best friend with ourselves. Imagine some of the voices you might have in your head that could be unkind. And if you actually turn them into a person beside you, and if you actually had that person speaking to you, you would be like, wow, he's really an asshole. Like, I can't believe he actually thinks he can get away with that. Like, really? Like, you're saying that? And what's crazy is we don't even realize how much we accept this negative self-talk. And because we don't recognize it, it weaves into our system as being true. So that's something. When we talk about being safe, it's not just about making choices that feel good on the outside, and I'll go a little bit more into that. But I would say that also, and even in some ways more importantly, your safety on the inside. Because if you're being really kind to yourself and supportive and listening, kind of like, oh, I can tell you're a little nervous. What do you need right now? Like, that's a safe voice, not like, fucking pull it together. What's wrong with you? Like, let's drink something so your anxiety goes away. Like, that's not safe. So if you actually can start to catch how you're speaking to yourself and how you're managing those parts of you, because it's like we're a circus inside. Those parts of you that get nervous, scared, sad, grieving, even the ones that get angry. Like, what's your connection to your inner listening? that will dictate how safe you feel with yourself. Because you want it so that your whole totality of selves, you got a planet. It's not just a circus, it's a planet inside of you. Your totality of selves feel like, hey, he, she, or they, like, I'm cool. There's space for me to be myself, and I'm being listened to. Because our systems are very intelligent. Like that inner anger or that inner sadness or that anxiety isn't just coming out of nowhere. And I'm not saying act out on it, but I'm saying, can you sit with yourself and actually find out what your needs are? And that ties in with safety, like knowing what your needs are. And, depending upon environments you were raised in, maybe, even though our parenting is hard, like it's hard. And I'm not really in the mood to blame or make excuses or anything, but parenting is hard. So I would imagine, even if you didn't have traumatic times growing up, your parents, to the best of their ability, did their best, but it can be stressful when you've got a child freaking out on you. So there might have been a time where you were freaking out as a toddler because, there were things happening and your parent was like, oh my God, I'm doing my best, but can you please shut up? We've all done that. And we do have to get to a point at some point where we're no longer lost in how our parents didn't meet our needs, because we can never crawl back to the cradle, but we can start to reparent ourselves. We can start to wire in, well, what didn't I get? How can I hold myself the way that I wasn't held? And it's a practice. I have to admit, it's just been this past year or two that now when I feel really sad or grieving, I don't try to figure it out or change it. It's like I can turn towards myself and just hug me. It's okay. I know that was really tough. So it's how can you start to wire in the kind of care that you want? And we don't even realize that there's care and attention that we're craving, that we're constantly going outside of ourselves. We're looking for some partner or some even business, even our boss. We look for our care in different situations, from our friends, from making choices like, I'll move to this country, I'll make this big change, and then finally those needs will get met. And we don't realize that there are certain things that we need to finally just wire in with ourselves. How can we turn towards ourselves tenderly? So this is a way to, because again, we can blame I don't feel safe, and we can blame it on the outside, but if you don't start to work with your own inner vibration and what your particular needs are and how you want to speak with yourself, you're going to miss when certain vibrations are off on the outside. I'll give you a really easy example. I had a client where when I went to her house, she had a bully spirit in her house. She had 2 men in her life that were bullying her. And then when I looked at her field, she actually had a bully entity in her field. And I'm like, And I said, do you bully yourself? Are you really unkind with yourself? Are you pretty bullying with your voice? And she's like, yes. And so although yes, of course, it's stop letting people bully you. The real change had to come from her stopping that inner bullying. And that's where our power is. What we start to say truly, yes and no, creating boundaries on the inside of what actually is allowed in our inner environment. Because when you're really clear on that, then you're going to be super clear on the outside. So this is my invitation to you about safety. And part of this is that I'm working with a lot of people with eating disorders. And before we can start to do that really deep work of why we really might have an eating disorder, because it isn't about food in the body, but it is. But it's there's something else. And if we start to talk, if I've got clients where it's like they just feel like they're always in chaotic situations, or even clients that want to learn how to do energy healing, you know, all of the work, I'm like, let's get your ground, let's get your foundation. And what is that? And one of those pieces in creating inner stability, in getting us to stop leaving our bodies, to stop acting out. Because again, when we get scared, we go into defense. Like, you can't prevent that. So it's like, how do I actually start to own my inner safety? And I think that for everyone on the planet, you know, we're right now, this is the time of COVID still, you know, and in different places, it's like our safety feels threatened, whether we know it or not. And for some of us, like, I know for myself, I always had a little bit of a vibration that felt unsafe. I didn't know you didn't need to not feel unsafe. Like, I just thought this was normal. And then, you know, through the years, it was like, oh, actually, like, I feel calmer. I feel more stable. I don't feel like I'm under attack all the time. And there's a lot of imprints in our field that can cause us to feel certain things that we don't know that we need to live with. And this is also why, you know, if there's certain vibrations that are familiar for us, we'll keep recreating that familiarity. They've done research that, like, we'll go towards familiar pain because that's safe, because it's known. Whereas even going towards like a healthy unknown, it will be harder for us to go towards because it's not known. And there's that part of us that wants to keep recreating that known. So it takes courage to be willing to step into a new vibration. That it might feel awkward, and you have to be comfortable with that for a little bit. But I can say wholeheartedly, it is so worth it to feel safe with yourself, to start to choose safety for yourself on this planet, you know, and also to model safety for one another, because we don't need to keep letting fear run us. And this is my magic message to you. I'm not going to tell you how early it is, but it's hella early. And I hope you have a wonderful day. See you soon.